Good morning, everyone. We're at Trey's Gaff once more in Workington, and we're going to follow on from the last podcast, which is to do with the milestones that Nigel went through throughout his life, and the milestone itself will reflect the importance of each of those stages. So we use that term milestone simply because it's a term that is quite easy to follow. If you go on a journey, you'd count off there's any milestones now. We've got signposts, but there used to be milestones, didn't there? And if you go to Carlisle, next time you go to Carlisle, because the Romans left this legacy, check out the milestones in every Roman mile, and they're just in the roadside. And the old travellers used to use the milestones with the coaches. That's how they knew how far they were going. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't see them as much now, but I do remember them. Yeah.
A lot of them have been taken away. I mean, they are supposed to be conserved, but I think some have been a bit naughty. Anyway, right.
Put them in the garden.
Well, yeah. Scavengers. Anyway, so enough of historical stuff. We're going to start with the milestone where Nigel left school. We don't need to explore any further in depth about the school life because there's a lot of stuff that Nigel probably won't remember, or he may remember in time, and if he does, we'll come back to the podcast. But just for now, we're going to look at the difficulties that Nigel faced when he left school, because you're out in the big wide world, and what you do or don't get at school tends to kind of set out the journey of your life up into adulthood. And if there's any problems at school, you probably, if you haven't been addressed, are going to carry into your adult life and then probably get worse, unless again you get help. Now, I think we touched on the fastidiousness of Nigel and Trey last time, and how they adapted to the needs that they had in relation to dyslexia, etc. So this is going to enlarge on that, but in the big adult world. And how difficult it can be for people, not just people who've been classed as having learning disabilities, but people who have dyslexia and seen as quite normal. What's normal? I was inverted commas, by the way. Can't see that on the podcast. Just thought I'd mention that. So we're going to throw it over to Nigel. Well, not the actual dictaphone, metaphorically speaking, Nigel. So leaving school after having been in a special educational unit, you would then have to do what most people do, and that is to think about what you're going to do next.
Yeah.
And we touched on it briefly, I think, didn't we?
Yeah.
Nigel wanted to be a Top Gun jet pilot. Is that right, Nigel? No, that wasn't, was it?
Yeah.
He wanted to be on Top Gun like Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise wore heels to look taller.
You did, yeah.
Yeah.
He'll choose.
So, tell the listeners about you leaving school. What are your recollections of leaving school and the problems that it brought with it? Anything at all that stands out?
What I was going to do after school, after leaving school, yeah.
And what were you thinking about doing? What would you have liked to have done?
Well,
at that time, obviously.
Just hopefully, or something to get somewhere, like a job or something, or...
But did you have an idea in your mind of what kind of job you would like?
Well, I was still interested in cars and stuff like that, and I wanted to be a mechanic, but I think I went...
And because you struggled at school,
yeah,
in order to become a mechanic, you'd have to have one. And what would you be able to have to do that you struggle with at school? You'd have to do an apprenticeship, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I did it. Yeah, I didn't have any of them, no.
So the apprenticeship would involve what?
Learning how to become a mechanic and stuff.
So you have to read drawings, you'd have to use numbers, you'd have to use... I mean, I don't think it was so much probably back then, but I know if you're going to be a mechanic now, you know, you've got to... And I know from my sons, because mechanical engineering is all in the same kind of pool. I mean, looking at some of them flipping drawings, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, I couldn't have flipping done it. So, was that something that was offered to you? Did you try to, or did you know when you went for your? Was it like a careers? Did you do any careers interviews or?
No, not really, no.
Did the job centre ask you what you wanted to do?
I don't think that came about, no.
Did you sign on early on, Nigel, or not? For Dole?
Yeah.
Because I think everybody had to, didn't they? Once you'd left, because you then had a national insurance number, which would then.
I didn't. No.
I don't think I had one straight away, but I think I did get one eventually.
No, I didn't know. I left school and I went on a what you call a course a learning course where you got paid. It was only a small amount, but that's where I got my national insurance, and then I got a job after that. So no, I didn't.
No, right. So it's different pathways. I mean, it's vague for me because it's happened many years ago now. I mean, I was a drummer anyway, so I didn't actually have to look for a job. But I know a lot of my mates, they had to go for apprenticeships, and they're off with an electrician or whatever.
Yeah.
So, did you know that it was going to be difficult to become a mechanic, Nigel, yourself, because of your struggles with your educational difficulties? So, how did that make you feel? What were your feelings when you that was what you'd like to do, but you realised that you probably were going to struggle because of your educational problems?
Well, I felt disappointed, like, and I thought I've got to do all the prep stuff in there, and you just
but your apprenticeships, wouldn't apprenticeship for mechanic,
it just went down the pan. Yeah.
So then, what did you do then? Where did you find yourself? What did you find yourself doing?
Well, nothing at the time.
So how did you fill your days in then?
Just stayed at home, and sometimes went out, went shopping and stuff with mum and dad and that.
Mm-hmm.
But that was about it.
So what did mum and dad do then to help you in that respect? Because your dad was a contractor, you said, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, just helping mother around the house and that, and looked after my brother when he came along.
Mm-hmm.
My little brother.
Looked after your little brother.
Yeah.
So you became a carer?
Not really, no. I just helped mother with stuff with looking after him.
Mm-hmm. So what's the age difference then between you both? Roughly. Are you a big brother and his little brother?
Well, I've got Peter.
Yeah.
There's a bigger brother. Me and then younger brother.
Mm-hmm. So was that a number of years then you were pretty much rattling around the house?
Yeah.
And when did that change? Did you go into a job? Did you look for work?
Well, I had. Well, seeing I got the door, I had to go and look for a certain amount of jobs.
Was it 6 then?
Yeah, and go on several courses as well.
I think they were good courses then. I think we should look after them again for you. Now, you mentioned courses, and I see because of your pathway and the pathway from the difficulties at school, then not being able to fulfil what you'd like to do, not to become a mechanic. The next milestone would be your experience of those kinds of courses, which actually was set up, in essence, to assist. Because I worked for them for quite a long time, as you well know, and I just think that we provided a proper service that was something you could carry on, and it was getting people to go into work because they developed the skills that you taught them. That wasn't the experience I had from the ones that you were going on to.
No.
I see that as a milestone. Do you want to tell me a little bit about your experiences on? Sorry, I'm laughing. I shouldn't be laughing.
I know.
This is not abuse, by the way, folks. I'm not laughing at Nigel because it's funny. I'm laughing because I remember the kinds of courses that Nigel went on.
Oh, definitely.
The one down Great Street, Nigel, that was a really good one, wasn't it?
That came later on, didn't it?
Nigel could write a book about these courses, couldn't you, Nigel?
Too right.
And it would begin with, avoid at all costs. If you're offered a course, don't go on it. Tell me you've developed some serious disease. You've caught 7 COVID-19 viruses. Can you do that?
I don't know, probably not.
So, I'm not going to ask you to remember your first course. If you remember, fine. What's your experience of the kinds of courses you're being sent on and looking for those jobs all the time, which a lot of them didn't have the skills to start with to look for them. But you had to look for them to get them, but you couldn't get them because you hadn't got the skills. So you're just rattling around in this biscuit tin.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
So what were your thoughts and experiences, Nigel?
Well, some of them just a couple of them were just pointless. Like, I'm just being
Shipped off to
shipped off to this place, and you've got to do this, because one was like for woodwork and plastering.
What's wrong with woodwork and plastering, Nigel? It's good.
Bricklaying and stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't kind of the thing I wanted to do.
And did you tell them that?
Well,
you've got to go on it, Nigel.
Yeah,
you'll lose your door, lad.
That's what it was like. You've got to do this, or this won't happen.
And I remember because from that came. You remember the adverts where people were trying to put square pegs into round holes?
Yeah.
It eventually became employment training, which is when I left.
That's what I went on. One of the.
Yeah, I was totally disillusioned because what I found quite funny was that they were talking about people being sent on these courses to do things that didn't actually suit them. They didn't want to do them. They didn't have the skills to do them. They would never have the skills to do them.
No.
And people were trying to fit these square pegs into round holes. It didn't work. So let's change it. We'll have employment training now. We'll do the same thing again. But it's better for them because we're going to tell them what they're going to do. Right, okay. How does that work? Well, if they don't, they'll lose the money.
That was basically like.
I sat, there's a bloke across the way from me, I've got his name now, right? Flipping arsehole. One of these people who's going to make money out of people, the situation you were in. And I remember saying to him, I thought this was going to be different. I'm a supervisor working with people trying to get them into employment because they're low on educational skills, they've got barriers or whatever. How is this going to work? Well, it's going to have to work, isn't it? That was the response. So I told you how much you thought about people such as yourself now who've gone in to try to better themselves, to try to get into employment. And that's pretty much why we're still in the same place now.
Yeah.
Grey Street course now, tell us about that.
Well,
I think the experiences were good on that course now.
I think that was the very last one I did before
I got him out of the system.
Before Harry got me out of the system.
It makes me think you were enjoying it, Nigel. It was so funny. I'm laughing. Sorry, folks. I shouldn't be laughing. I'm supposed to be professional. So, Nigel, your last course, that's the milestone I think we'll look at because I think pretty much reflects everything that took place prior to that, didn't it, really?
Oh, yeah.
So, tell me a bit about your experience at that course. Think about Grey Street, where the course was held and you turned up, and how did it take place?
No, you just
turned up.
That's about it, I think. That's it.
And you turned up because you had to turn up.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what went on in those sessions that you went to. What did you have to do?
Well, it was like sit in the classroom. You had to sit in the classroom and do some. They give you.
What did they give you?
Well, they got you a file, and they give you paperwork to do. Like you had to do some spelling, maths, English, and whatever else.
Yeah.
I was like.
Did you have a one-to-one, Nigel? It was just one person who had the whole.
No, just stuck in a room with other people in the same situation.
And did you know why you were doing these things in the classroom?
No.
Did they talk about, and this is again the square pegs round holes, stay with it, trade, aren't they? In order to go into particular kinds of jobs, you have to have particular kinds of skills.
Yeah.
And some skills were transferable into other areas as well. So, you used to work on what that person's skill was. Yeah? And obviously because of your autism and your learning disability, I identified there were certain ways that you worked where I could work on those areas which would actually help you in everyday life, which I like to think it has done for Nigel. Yeah. But unfortunately the system wasn't set up that way, as you remember,
no,
Nigel.
It wasn't.
You talked about the behaviours in the class. I remember that was one of the things you brought to me.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the behavioural stuff, which we discussed in the previous podcast, I think.
Yeah.
Do you remember the behaviours that took place in that class? What it was like to be in there?
Just
It's obviously a good experience because he's overwhelmed.
crap. Yeah, just
What things do you remember about it then, Nigel, in that classroom? Any incidents that took place? Anybody who kicked off? Anybody who was out of control and it affected the way you were working?
well, it didn't actually kick off, but they were just noisy, sometimes noisy and that. And teacher, teacher, just person who was there.
Yeah.
The chairman said, "Oh, be quiet."
And that affected you trying to do the work that they'd given you?
Yeah.
And did you struggle with that work that they'd given you?
Yeah, I did. He just basically didn't want to do it basically in the first place.
Well, you had to do it because you'd lose your money otherwise, which is a gun. It's still the same now, universal credit.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't do as you're told, you'll stop your money.
Yeah.
And this is that huge amount that you get for universal credit.
Well, some of us were like well over 30 and now, 30, 40 in our 40s and that, so we were all adults and we were we were at school. It was like being at school, back at school.
Yeah, sounds great.
Sounds like back at school.
And the very thing that you're trying to rectify, and again, I spent many years trying to change the system, and it doesn't change, it's still the same as it was before, because it was easy just to move everybody around like sheep rather than deal with the actual thing you were paid to do.
Yeah.
It's typical of a class that's set up for people that's supposed to help them to get into employment or help them to gain new skills or whatever, and they don't think about the fact that this person might be embarrassed to be there, they might be quite shy, there might be other learning barriers, you haven't actually assessed the person fully. All you do is give them pieces of paper to do something.
Yeah.
So after that disillusionment, Nigel, from Grey Street, because I know you wanted to go back, I mean I had to stop him going back. Me and his tutor fell out. It didn't take too long either, did it?
No.
There was a milestone that I remember now, so during those years,
Yeah.
where we went to the job centre and I had an issue with the individual
Yeah.
that was behind the computer. Do you remember having any vague recollections of that?
I do. Yeah.
Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about that? Because that experience in itself is a massive milestone. It's also a barrier. And they probably still do it to this day, although I think it's more automated now. It's more technology where you go into machines and if you don't even know what you do with technology, you're stuck really. But it used to be a computer where they wouldn't look at you. Remember the computer says no?
I remember that.
Pretty much like that really, wasn't it? And how many jobs you look for this week and all the rest of it. Not thinking this person might feel extremely uncomfortable. They might not be able to answer your questions fully. Mm. And that's when I got involved. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that, Nigel. The experience of having to sit there.
Well, it wasn't very good because you just had to look for a certain amount of jobs, and then you took them in and you thought, hang on, I just looked for 12 jobs and you're looking at 2, and they're just like, I feel like I've wasted my time here.
Yeah.
You asked me to look for a certain amount of jobs and you're not bothered.
So you were thinking that what you were doing was essential in order to get the job,
yeah.
And you'd actually just a token gesture, really.
Yeah, exactly.
And what about? Because this is when I got involved, because I asked to see the manager. What about the attitude of the people that were dealing with you, and how you were dealt with? What about things like eye contact and the pace of questioning and allowing you time to answer, a bit like. Pips.
Yeah, a bit like Pips.
It was a bit like that.
Yeah, it was really fast and nobody looked at you.
No, they didn't. Some of them did, some of them didn't.
See, you had that milestone of the courses.
Yeah.
You had the milestone of the job centres, although it wasn't job centre then, was it job centre then?
Job centre plus.
Job centre, yeah. Oh no, it went to plus now, it was job centre.
Yeah, it was.
Changed it to plus.
They did, Yeah,
it's not just a job centre, it's a job centre plus. Because we do more for you now. I used to love job centres. So why did I get involved, Nigel, in that situation, in you having to go in to look for jobs and have dyslexia had problems with communications, had problems with the use of computers, for instance, even to know what you were looking for, and also how to present it onto a form or back to them. Tell me a little bit about what that was like when I got involved. Why did I get involved?
So I wouldn't have to, no, hang on.
No, it's true, carry on, because that's pretty much the motivation at the outset. What was I trying to do for you?
Well, not...
Don't worry if you struggle now, because it's a complex issue and it's not an easy one. We're talking about the attitude of the people that were dealing with you. We're talking about the fact that you had to be there because otherwise they'd stop your money.
Yeah.
We're talking about you realising that actually they didn't care whether you found a job or not.
They would.
You know, they're just tapping away there. Eye contact, that wasn't there.
No, it wasn't.
So it pretty much was on my part to get you away from that.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And do you remember how it took place? Because you eventually went to DLA, didn't you?
Yeah, eventually, yeah. We just found out what kind of benefits were out there.
Yeah.
To get, instead of getting just the job seekers and that. And see, because the job seekers and that wasn't very much like the Pips is now. Well, not the Pips, the...
DLA, it used to be old DLA. The Dole.
The Dole.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, he didn't have much to live on because he was basically...
Job seekers allowance.
That was it.
Yeah.
It was good, because if you lived on your own, you struggled there.
Yeah.
So you saw that as well, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, this is obviously a bigger issue.
Yeah.
And it's one which I've dealt with a lot over the years for people and with systems, with organisations. It still infuriates me now because we had the recent issue around the universal credit.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not pro people staying at home all day claiming the benefits and doing nothing else, because we've got a whole broadband of people with them now. But what I am against is the fact that people are being looked at as less than because they're out of work. So we'll give them a pittance, and this goes way back to the Industrial Revolution as well. If you starve people long enough, right, they'll do anything. The mines took loads of them. The steel foundries took loads of them.
Yeah.
You know, because at least we're getting something.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the people who own the actual foundries, mines or whatever, were making a flipping fortune and building big houses. You see the big estates now.
Yeah, you do.
You know, so the dole itself is not enough for people to live on.
No.
Now, should you give people enough to live on whilst looking for work, or should you starve them out so they have to do something? That's a juxtaposition, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the Tory government, and you all know, people, listeners, I'm very pro-Tory. I love Boris and his crew. Sleaze, no sleaze in the Tory party whatsoever. They don't give one damn about people such as yourself, Nigel. They would just turn a blind eye if you're struggling and living, say, in the scroll you were living in down that flat down at in Hensingham.
Yeah.
It wouldn't bother them one iota.
No.
If you go back into Victorian Britain, if you go back into France, back in the 18th century, people were starving on the streets.
Yeah, they were.
Look at all the old black and white pictures of the slums. Workington,
Yeah.
slums, there were slums down, well, they were all over the place anyway. People were living, there was 13, 14, 15 people living in one small house.
Yeah.
No running water. I could go on. So this issue, although it was a lot worse for them then, it's still around.
Yeah.
And people shouldn't, and I've had people that I know say this, going to ask you to look for a job. It's so easy, isn't it? You know? But if you've got special needs, which is what we're talking about now, it's even harder to get a job. And if the system is supposed to support you, pays you a pittance and you can't live properly, you can't catch a bus because you can't afford to catch the bus.
No.
Or if you do catch the bus, then it leaves you short for buying a pint of milk or something.
Yeah, it does.
And that's pretty much the issue around the universal credit now as well. And then that £20 they gave them to get them through the storm, they took it away from them.
Yeah.
And yet they can give money to the Royals to build a yacht. They can fly to flipping, where was it, that conference in Glasgow?
Yeah.
Big gas guzzling cars or whatever. So, this is a much, much bigger issue. And you're only a small cog in that wheel.
Yeah.
But the good thing for you, Nigel, is you've developed strong self-esteem,
Yeah.
strong confidence, strong self-belief as well, and you know what the system's like.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
So going back to the DLA transference where we got you into a situation where you could build on those skills, and unfortunately the actual outlets for people holding down jobs with special needs isn't actually that big.
No, it's not, is it?
Because the unfortunate thing is that most people now are so strapped they can't afford to spend time with someone to help them. And you know that with your soiree at the cafe at Penrith.
Yeah.
You know, talk about employment support and we'll look after them. And then in a few weeks, with time now we need to. And that happens in Cafe West as well. You know, they're there to help the people and actually spend most of the time running around like peddlers' chickens,
Yeah,
don't they?
they do.
But that's another issue anyway. So that milestone that you reached, and you got onto your DLA, which I was dead chuffed about. Probably more chuffed than I was with the Pips.
Yeah.
Actually, it was a bit of a battle
It was,
because
yeah.
I'd pretty much said, look, you know, you've got this lad in the system, and it's not working. You know, you're not helping him, so I'm going to have to do something for him. And this is the case now.
Yeah.
You know, that's why he needs that support. And you know, thankfully we got it anyway. So you got that money. How did that change things for you, Nigel? You know, you didn't have to go and sign on.
No,
You didn't have to look for 6 to 12 jobs a week. You didn't have to sit being looked at. Well, not even looked at sometimes either. I think what's her name was quite good. She was helpful. I've got a name now. She was based at is it Workington or Whitehaven? Maybe they travelled around. I don't know.
Yeah,
I've got a name now. But
now.
yeah, she helped as well, didn't she?
Yeah, I think she's retired now.
Oh yes, she's retired now. Yeah, I mean I got her on side as well. She was really good, but again, the good ones, you know, end up getting squashed.
Yeah, they do. Right.
So how did it change things for you once you got away from that system?
No, I get to have a better quality of life.
Did you feel a sense of relief, Nigel?
Yeah, and I was able to get stuff that I needed, which was like household stuff that I couldn't get before.
Yeah, and I mean on that note, because this milestone is also crucial about the way you adapted to the situation.
Yeah.
Because even though you were strapped, I mean I used to help you out a number of times as well.
Yeah.
And that wasn't because I felt I had to. It's just because that's what I did.
Yeah.
But you know, you struggled to get the basics.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
You were having to go to church friends to have meals and things as well.
Yeah.
Now you know this is in the 20th century.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, people think that people like yourself now, oh, well, doing okay, they've got such and such. You know, no, that's not how it is. You know, have a real look and you see exactly how they're struggling. So you were able to change things in that way.
Yeah.
When you were free of the system, yeah, how did your life span out then? What things did you do that you didn't do before? Apart from obviously the food aspects and things like that, the items for your house and what other things?
I managed to get passes and that, train pass and a bus pass.
And of course you're interested in railways?
Yeah.
And buses?
And buses, and I managed to get out and about with my bus pass, get a bus pass and get out and about.
Yeah, therapeutic aspect, and that's the bit that we looked at. Okay, I mean Nigel OD'd on the therapeutic aspect and spent most of his life on the bus. But hey, you know, better that than the other side, the way it was. Any other milestones, because I'm aware the clock's ticking now, any other milestones that would come after that relief from the system that stands out for you? What other milestones? And I'm thinking, because we discussed a little bit about this morning, not about milestones, but about individuals. What changed in your life when you transferred into doing something different? What did you acquire? Did you make any new friends? Did you have different kinds of social gatherings or whatever? What changed in that respect?
And some new friends.
We mentioned one this morning, the lovely Raymond.
Oh, Raymond.
What about meeting Boise in Waterstones?
Yeah. I remember that.
And who did you meet Boise with?
Raymond and Mark and you.
Now, if you go back to the days of being in Ensingham,
Yeah.
did you ever think that would have taken place?
No. You wouldn't have known.
No aspiration, no dreaming, no hoping it would occur. So that was a massive change, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
You know, and in the field of where I used to work, not in an actual field, because I used to work indoors, just to pay that up for you there. But some people, like farmers, they work in fields and they're fine with that.
Yeah, yeah.
They can go in the outbuildings if it gets cold.
Yes, they can, yeah.
They've got outside toilets as well if it gets cold. But I digress. In this particular field of work, I think there has to be a massive change,
Yeah.
and it's not going to happen in my lifetime. I think I said to Trey once I'd written something out about a blueprint,
Yeah.
so people could pick up on that and then transfer it onto the next generation. But unfortunately, systems don't want to work with that because it's easier just to do the stuff that you talked about earlier. Then, isn't it really? So the next milestone, because we are going to round off on this particular one now.
Yeah.
Which milestone do you think that would be? What milestone comes after situations like the Boise stuff and, you know, when your social mobility changed, where you were able to get out more, things like that? What else changed? What were the milestones you think there would be? Do you want to assist?
What about when you met Jackie?
I'm trying to...
I'm shocked at Nigel.
It's always... I always
I want to
forget.
tell her.
Next time you see it, go on.
The love of your life, yeah, and I'm thinking Nigel's got to get this milestone. I mean, it was a
Exactly.
massive one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
And I remember the picture, it's still there now, where you and Jackie are standing up against that, like, almost aluminium backdrop.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And Jackie's, oh, God, it's Nigel, you know, and Nigel's like, oh, God, what's going on here? Because at that time, someone was running around after Jacqueline, and it was a right flipping, you know the one I mean, that got banned from the museum.
Oh, that, you know.
Yeah, he had a thing for Jack, and Nigel was totally oblivious to the fact that Jacqueline was wetting her pants looking at him every time he walked past. So that was a big milestone, a really good milestone, and then unfortunately it turned into a difficult milestone, which is what you're still living with now.
Yes.
So I would like to, in the next podcast, concentrate on, first of all, the friendships you built up, because that's what we touched on earlier there. I saw that as a milestone.
Yeah.
You became good friends with Mark, with Raymond.
Yes, it is.
Even with Jennifer as well, which was difficult at the outset, but you became good buddies eventually.
Yeah.
You know, all those people that you came into contact with. Maria,
Oh, yeah.
I've just met a girl.
Cool.
You know, and then when we've looked at that, from that came the friendship with Jacqueline. Because Jacqueline also was struggling at that time.
She was, yeah.
She had a very bad impression of how men were with her.
Yeah.
She had some difficult times with different people. She wasn't really recognised as someone that was clever. And you noticed that she was clever. In fact, the chocolate issue, remember Chocolate Gate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Harry, Nigel's keeping buying me this chocolate, but I know why he's buying that chocolate. Do you, Jack? Yeah, it's so he can eat it himself.
Even himself.
Jacqueline turned into Gary there for a moment.
Gary.
So yeah, we'll come back to that, and I don't want to make that too sad for you, because all the happy memories that you know you've got for the time spent with Jackie, I don't want it marred by how it eventually came about. But I think it's a crucial one for people to hear about, and also as well, Nigel, how you got through it, because in the early days it was difficult for you both.
It was, yeah.
Because you didn't really know what you were doing, relationship. It's like these two. Then Nigel running away, and Jacqueline running after him.
Aye.
Ringing him up, where you at, Nigel? Oh, it's bloody Jacqueline again. Remember?
Yeah. Gone away.
And of course, the other milestone that's going to be in there is the fact that you did a lot of work with myself and Fiona, although Fiona was just basically following me, on relationships and how you could make it strong and sustainable as well. So we'll look at that as well in the next podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
We can do them both together, we can do them separately,
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that, Trey?
No, it's. I think it's a good reflection on how difficult it is for people like who has any kind of disability trying to get through the working system. It just doesn't work at all, does it? You know,
And it won't change. That's not me being cynical. It will not change.
No, it won't.
You know, people who become unemployed will always be looked at as being lesser than. And until
Yeah.
that changes, you know, we've got a whole broad band of people now who are out there drinking and smoking and taking drugs or whatever, getting benefits. That's got to change as well.
Yeah.
You know, the issue on social care was on TV last night. I mentioned to Madeline. You know, we're not looking at one part of social care that needs to be addressed. It's the whole flipping lot
Yeah, it does, yeah.
that needs to change.
yeah.
You know, bottom up. Isn't it?
Yeah.
So we're going to round off there. That's, I think, really good, Nigel, because you're starting to kind of connect to what it is we're talking about. And I think it's really important as well that people know the reality of how difficult this is. And we aren't talking about taking people under your jurisdiction in care organisations and then treating some really well and the rest are just left. You know? You take the special ones and then you leave the other ones out. You can't do it that way.
No.
It's got to be right across the board. But I know organisations, Nigel, where some people get loads of holidays
They do, yeah.
and other people's left on the sides.
Yeah.
And Jacqueline used to be one of them as well. And that's because they were besties, they were friends, you know. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. And so
It doesn't.
it's got to change in total, but it won't change in my lifetime.
No.
And on that cynical note, I shall say that is any final comments, Nigel?
Can't think of anything now.
Is that a wrap?
That's a wrap.
Thank you.